Good morning and welcome to our June webinar from Catholic Prison Ministry Coalition. I'm Father George Williams, and today our guest is Cyril Prabhu, who is going to be speaking to us about his organization nonprofit called Proverbs 226, and it's how to break the cycle of violence, working toward breaking the cycle of generational incarceration and empowering the kids of incarcerated people to pursue sustainable careers in their lives. Cyril was a senior vice president for Bank of America for over 30 years. And in 2012, he founded Proverbs 226, which, in case you're wondering, you can have a Bible handy. The Proverbs chapter 2, verse 26 says, "Train children in the way they should go, and even when they are old, they will not turn from it." So he uses biblical wisdom to begin this wonderful project. And of course, we're looking forward to spotlighting the needs of not just people who are incarcerated, but the other people in their families who often are neglected when we're talking about prison ministry. So Cyril, it's great to have you with us today. And before we begin, let's just take a moment and pray. So merciful God, we hold up and offer our prayers for all of those who are incarcerated, all those who are victims of crime, all those who are affected by our prison system, and especially today, Lord, we pray for the children of men and women who are incarcerated. We ask you, Lord, to continue to send people like Cyril to help them to overcome the problem of intergenerational violence, intergenerational incarceration. Help us, Lord, to have the wisdom to break these cycles in order to help us all to build a world of peace and justice. We make this prayer in Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
So welcome,
Amen.
Cyril. It's so wonderful to have you with us. Would you like to start by describing your work?
Absolutely, Father. The work that we do with the children of inmates. And so as I go through this presentation, I'll talk about why did we go this route of working with the children? Because oftentimes people think that when you're working with the prisons and the prison system, you're constantly thinking of like the inmates that are serving time in prison, while, the silent victim of all these things are the family members of these inmates. There is a statistics, Father George, that it says that, when a father or mother goes into prison, there is a 7 out of 10 of these children will end up in a prison themselves. It is amazing how, these stats are just like a stack up against these children when a father and mother goes into prison.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we will talk about today, Father George.
Great. And also, Cyril, and for those who are with us today live, if you have questions, go ahead and post them in your chat feature at the bottom of your screen, and I'll keep an eye on them, and I will pose your questions to Cyril after he's able to kind of describe his work.
Fantastic. Thank you. So one of the things that I do want to say, people ask me oftentimes, Cyril, why is this important for you? Because if we know the why that is, clearly laid out, there are two pieces of my why that I will talk about. I came into this country in 1993, whenever an Indian guy comes into this country, we are always thinking about this is where the milk and honey flows, And so when you get on here, we are so excited to see all these tall buildings and amazing a journey in this country. This is such a blessed country in the whole universe. You have so much of resources, the God-given resources in this place. And so when I came here in 93, to my surprise, when I went to buy a computer, I was taken down at a gunpoint, locked up in a dark room, and for nearly 45 minutes, somebody had a gun in my head in that dark room, and they could have shot me that night, and I would have been gone 30 years ago. And it is the grace of God that allowed me to spare that night my life. And when I came out of that situation, so that was one of the main reasons, that just like it got me connected in this path. But also, I don't know how many of you have heard of organizations like World Vision or Compassion International. These organizations send $30, $35 to third world countries like China, India, Japan, and so on, where the kids in those countries can go to school and get educated. I was the kid on the other end. Somebody sent a $35 all the way to India. So one day I'll become a senior vice president at Bank of America. So this is God's grace in my life. What He gave me is an opportunity to hold on to a rope that I can use one day to look at the guys who are actually going through the same situation that I went through, right? So when I came out of the situation of like taken down at the gunpoint, I really wanted to go home. I was like a ET, go home. I didn't want to be here. I was telling God, I had enough of milk and honey. Let me go back to India. But somehow God had a different plan in my life. It's almost like, sometimes God uses the things that we go through in our life to shape who we become, later. So at the point of that time, it may have looked like a misery to me, but today that's the mission field for me. And my day job is data mining. So if anyone, is looking for like a mining the data, it's like a gold mine. We mine the data. And so companies like a Bank of America and Wells Fargo, they have a huge need for guys like me who mine the data and tell the story. Now, when I started this journey, the first thing that I was doing is like, trying to find out the guys who put me through this. Why? The next day on the newspaper, there was an article that said high-tech robbery in San Leandro, California. This happened in California. And halfway through that letter, the newspaper, it says Cyril Prabhu, that's my name, who lives in Union City, said he can identify these people. This was in the front page of Oakland Tribune. And so I really was scared and I wanted to go home. I didn't want to be here, right? But then God, allowed what I have as a skill to just like look at the guys who put me through. I was researching on them, and accidentally I ran into this number that says one of the alarming numbers that I saw was that US is only 5% of world's population, but US has got 25% of world's incarceration. If you take all the people that are serving time in prison pulled together, US has got well over 25% of world's incarceration. That alarmed me. Why? How can a country like a US can go through this, right? And so in my presentation, I'm going to talk about a lot of data, a lot of numbers. So, later, if you need any of those numbers or data, feel free to ask where you can go find it. I will send it to you. But when I looked at the number, definitely that alarmed me. But you know, what was more alarming for me is this. When the prison ministry is not new in this country. The prisons have these ministries going on across the country. In fact, it took a lot of attention when there was a man named Chuck Colson. When he was part of the mission with the President Nixon, got into trouble when he came out of the prison. He started what they call as a prison fellowship, right? So the prison effort or a prison ministry is not actually new. It has been there for a long time. But when Chuck Colson started Prison Fellowship, we had 250,000 people in prison. That was in 1974. Today, we have 2.3 million people in prison. How did this country grow up, this population? This country did not grow by 450% for us to have this many people in prison. And so, there's got to be more to it. When you do a data analysis, it's about, going deeper into the problem and seeing where it stems from, right? So I started to dig deeper and deeper and deeper. And one of the things that, all of the prison ministries were doing at that point, this was in 93, 94, was all about like a revamping or helping the guys who are inside the prison. They would go into the prison, they will do life skills, they will teach them how to live better. They will have like a mass inside the prison. They will have novenas inside the prison. They will have like a, Bible studies inside the prison. All those are good. We need them, right? But the effort was always to help them fix their problem so that when they come out of prison, they will not go back in. The term that we commonly use is called recidivism. Nationally, the guys who are coming out of prison will go back into prison in the first 30 to 90 days. And 70% of these guys will go back into the prison in, the first 30 to 90 days. That's the national average. Now, when you take that number, right, and apply it to the 1974, 250,000 people, if recidivism is the only problem that America faces today, then we should have only 299,000 people in prison today. How did we end up with the 2.3 million people, right? There were a lot of things that happened along the way. Early part of 80s, 1980s, we had war on drugs. We have three strikes, you're out. You have like a lot of these problems that were happening that costed this. But the one of the most alarming number that I saw was that the children of inmates that are fastly going into prison, right? And these, are going into the prison, because not because that, they have, chosen to take this path, but it's because their father is in prison or the mother in prison. So it has become like a generational impact. That's the cycle we want to break. We want to break the generational cycle of incarceration. Now, I talked about the children. We have well over 21 people on this line. Saints, when you go today and put your head on the pillow tonight, know this for sure. 4,500 kids went to prison, jail, or some criminal justice system today. We have well over 63,000 children serving time in prisons and jails today that are below the age 18. 10,000 of these children are below the age 13, and 3,000 of those children are serving time for life without parole. A country like America cannot afford to have this many people go into prisons at a young age. And so what happens is that if we don't fix this problem, they will grow and they will become the fathers, and then their children will follow the footsteps. Their children's children will follow the footsteps. So we need to squeeze this pipeline to break the cycle. Now, when I started this journey, actually in 2005, I had all these numbers in my hand. But when I went and spoke to churches and prison ministries or prison organizations that are already working, for nearly 7 years, nobody listened to me. So 7 years went by. I would take all these data, I would explain it to them. The data that I had originally, it just pointed me that all these problems were stemming from African Americans, because, 1 out of 3 African American men are in prison in this country, in large cities, LA, New York, Chicago. You have 1 out of 3 African American men are in prison. And the second number that pointed me to that is like any African American child that does not complete high school has like a huge probability of going into prison themselves, right? So I thought this was an African American problem. Then I look at the number that says like, Hispanics, large number of Latino population are serving time in prison. So in the data mining, it's about the data pattern matching. So when you want to pattern match, you want to find the commonality, right? What are the commonalities that I ran into with the African American people and the Hispanic people at large? 8 out of Latino moms that are giving birth in this country are single moms. So this problem that we are facing in America has nothing to do with the color, race, or gender. It has everything to do with the fathers not being at home. If we want to bring crime down in this nation, then we need to bring fathers back into the life of these children. The fatherlessness is actually a number one epidemic. We all ran into pandemic, which is a global effort, whereas epidemic is very regional. In America, number one problem that we face is fathers not being at home. And so in order to fix this problem, we need the fathers back in. Number two, there is a very high correlation between the kids going into prison and lack of education. 1 out of 8 kids that goes to elementary school drops out without finishing high school. 6.6 million children are dropping out of school every single year. And the statistic says that 1 out of 8 kids that drops out of high school will end up in a prison jail or some criminal justice system. So we didn't want to solve the entire gamut of problem. We want to solve only 2 problems. Number one problem, we want to bring the fathers back into the life of these children. People ask, like, what about the moms? We deal with moms as well. But when you compare the inmate population, over 91% in America are men that are serving time in prison. The women were only 8 to 9%. It is growing a tiny bit more now, but it's the majority of them are men in this country. So if we address the men's problem, 80% of our problem will start to come down. Now, the first problem is to reconcile the fathers back into the life of these children. And number two, we wanted to help them with education. That's where Proverbs 2 to 6 come into play. That's what we wanted to do. We want to help these kids to break the cycle by reconciling the relationship as well as, sending them over to school. Here's what we do. We take these children today. Proverbs 2 to 6 is in 220 prisons. We have 17,000 children in the program. And here's what we do when we go into prison. We spend the whole days, about 7 to 8 hours inside the prison. And this prison, that video that you're seeing, is from one of the maximum security prisons in South Carolina. And this is what happens. In the morning, the yellow t-shirts are the volunteers that come to serve. We have about 3,000 volunteers in the Carolinas at this point. And the red color t-shirts are the children. And so we assemble them in a place before we take them into the prison. One of the biggest problem in the prison system in America is that when they come for a visitation, they have to sit on the other side of the glass door, or even if they sit in the same room, they cannot touch each other, So that takes the personal touch from these fathers and children.
To who you are and all you've done, I lift my praises.
Sometimes these children don't even know how their fathers look. And so we have to tell these children, this is your dad. They're coming after 10 years, 12 years. They don't even remember how the fathers look. And so during the day, the kids get a chance to to play with their father, solve, problems, working together. And they give us the large room, like a chapel in the Carolinas. And the father gets to be a father for one day. And we spend time during a lunchtime. They sit as a family. So it's a whole family coming together. And it's such a huge deal for these families. They don't get a chance to sit on a table to eat. And we take portraits during a lunchtime and celebrate all their missed birthdays. Then we take time to talk about forgiveness, because in core of this mission, forgiveness is so much needed. They have to let go of the past hurts and pain.
My soul longs for you, and I believe. Holy is
That's
your
his mom.
name,
He's
and
probably
most
telling his mom, Mom, you
beautiful.
haven't done
None
anything for
can
me to be here.
stand
And they
against
have to ask
my
for forgiveness from their children. I'm sorry, from their moms and their wives. And then they get on their knees and wash their children's feet and ask for forgiveness. This is exactly what our Savior did the night before he was crucified. He got on his knees and washed the disciples' feet. And that's the only core element that we use in this program. The first time these fathers who washed their children's feet, 18 fathers who washed their children's feet, when they got released, not even one of them has come back. 12 years has gone by. The first set of 18 fathers who washed their children's feet, not even one of them came back. Since then, we have grown. In South Carolina, 815 fathers have been released in the last 12 years who has washed their children's feet like this. And the government statistics say 70% will come back in. 10, 12 years has gone by. Only 33 has come back. Washing of the feet is not a 2,000-year-old story. It is well alive. And today, we are seeing the change in the lives of these children and these fathers. This is a very core difference. We don't want these kids to leave end of the day with that heaviness in their heart. So we have like a couple of games towards the end of the day so they get a chance. Also to decorate the pictures, the portraits. The father gets to keep a copy of that picture, and the kids get a chance to take them home, the other picture. After all these things, we bring the kids out and we ask these children, if you have forgiven your father, let that balloon go. When you see these hundreds of balloons hit that space, it will chill the spines of the people that are watching it. Since we started this journey, the first year we were trying to figure out how do we bring education back into this? Because coming into the prison is only one step. That step puts a medicine in their heart. But then we have to give them an outlet for that. And that outlet for them is just like, giving these children a chance to go to school and get educated. The first year in 2013, actually after the first year of working with them, in 2013, we were trying to see if we can send these kids to college, right? And there were 59 kids that were in the high school age when we made the phone call. Out of the 59, 30 were already in prison. 19 of them were pregnant, could not go to school. And 10 of them were doing 6th or 7th grade. We could not find one kid that could go to school in 2013. But because these fathers kept washing their children's feet and asking for forgiveness and putting a medicine in their hearts, the second year we were able to send 3 kids to college. We were like, oh, And then 8 kids, then 25. As of this morning, we have sent 105 children to college or technical or trade school. Why is that important? Because 75% of the national crime in this country is done by high school dropouts. So education is a very crucial component that we need to bring into the life of these children. And so here's what has happened. Now that, we started in South Carolina. South Carolina, when we started in 2012, the number one employer of South Carolina was Department of Corrections. Can you believe the number one employer of a state is Department of Corrections, But fast forward 12 years, the number of inmates in South Carolina has come down from 26,000 to 15,000. Results, facts, right? And the number of prisons in South Carolina came down from 26 to 21. The prisons are getting closed. In North Carolina, it came down from 74 to 54 today. And so it's because of, what these fathers are doing to their children and mothers are doing to the children. And so what happened is like now in the next 4 years, we believe we have over 2,000 kids that are getting ready to go to college, technical, or trade school. So we went from not finding one kid in 2012 to now we have close to 2,000 kids getting ready to go to school. So we went back to the state of North Carolina and we said, we want to start our own college, and trade schools. They said, great idea, Cyril. You should do it. But then I said that if we have helped to close the prisons, then we need those prisons transferred over to us. So we went through a battle of like 3 years. October 2023, the state of North Carolina has transferred their very first prison, closed prison, into our hands, and we are converting that prison into a trade school. And it's called a 5-and-2 trade school. It's inspired from 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. And in John chapter 6, it says 5 loaves of barley bread. And the barley breads in those days were eaten by horses or by the people, that, could not afford the bread made out of wheat. That's what these kids are bringing. So we actually are now having a trade school with the 5 trades. It's almost like the 5 guys, 5 guys, started the 5 guys, the same way we're going to have 5 trades from welding, digital arts, vertical farming, culinary arts, and automobile. That's what we're going to be teaching. And so anyone who's listening to it, you want to come to North Carolina to see, you're so welcome to come because this is the first time in the history of this nation, a prison is going to get converted into a trade school or for educational purposes. Why is that important? 42 states in this country has more prisons and jails than colleges. And 24 states have more prison beds than college dorm beds. Saints, I believe very strongly God has brought all of us today on this line and has been speaking to you in so many ways. That's why you're part of a prison coalition. You have a heart for this. And we know we cannot be in all the places. And so we have created a playbook of what worked and what did not work. And if you want to do this in a prison that you're already working with, we'll be more than happy to share the playbook. And in fact, we have gotten so many clearance in the Carolinas, we'll be more than happy to support you and come to your state or your city, and we will help set up things, walk with you for, the first year or so you can do this mission on your own. And in fact, we will welcome any of these children from all these places to come to North Carolina if they want to study. Given what we have shown in this last, 10, 12 years, now Virginia has offered their closed prisons. Texas has offered their closed prisons, and Ohio. So we will continue to convert these prisons into trade schools and colleges. But this is God's grace, and I'm so thankful to Miss Karen and the coalition, and Father George and Kara and Courtney for allowing me to be here. I'm so thankful for you for taking time in the middle of your day to come and listen to this.
Thank you, Cyril. Thank you, and for sharing the beautiful film and your work. You haven't mentioned it, but I heard there's a movie coming out.
Yes, sir. So there is a movie coming out. It's called Break the Cycle, and it's coming out, later this year. And the movie is about, the kids, and the life of these children, how they interact with, me, and how, that has changed their life. And so, if time permits, it will take just like a 1 minute.
Yeah.
I'll do a quick trailer, on the movie so that you will get it's almost like a teaser, 1 minute teaser or 2 minute teaser. Let me get that.
Okay, and while you're showing that, if any of our viewers have any questions, please post them on your chat feature.
All right, this is a 2-minute trailer.
Man from India. Wait. How does a man from India come all the way to America to help with the prison system?
My first week in America, I was a crime victim.
Get out! Where's the money at?
And all I could remember from that night was that child that I saw. 2 out of 3 former prisoners are rearrested, and I wanted to do something about it.
The Bible is clear on helping those who are in prison. What did you have in mind?
We create this area inside the prison where these incarcerated parents create backpacks of school supplies for their children.
Then how would you get them to the children?
We'll invite them to the prison.
Can I help you?
Hi, I'm Cyril. These are the backpacks for your children.
We're good.
Your father sent it for you.
My father.
See, it has your name on it. Anthony,
Yeah?
your father sent me. He sent the backpack.
Tell him I don't want anything to do with him. Tell him to keep his stupid school crap.
Anthony.
These are the men that can make your dreams come true.
Is that Congressman? I do not care what you have done.
Stop! 2 suspects.
And I do not care about your life behind these bars. All I care about is your children. That they never have to come here.
And I will turn children's hearts back to their parents.
We have to break the cycle.
Looks wonderful. When will it be released?
October, November is what. So I'm going to be on the road, traveling from Florida to California, stopping at different places. In fact, the Loyola High School in California is hosting, likely to host this in their school when I pass through Southern California.
Right. Well, I hope you can make it to the Bay Area too and visit San Quentin.
Of course.
As you're describing this, what have been the biggest challenges in implementing these programs for you?
The thing is that a lot of times the inmates are like a row. They want to sign up their children. They want to be part of the life, right? It's the family members. They're hurt and they're in pain, and they don't want, to be part of this life. These guys. They say that if somebody is sentenced for 5 years or more, then the families abandon them, inside the prison. And so it is the hardest part is to convince the kids and the family members, to be part of this mission. People oftentimes, Father George, think that, raising money is an issue. That was never an issue for me. I've never had to, beg for money. God has sent the resources when I'm in desperate need. He'll send the angels, so.
Yeah, it's amazing how that works, isn't it? The power of prayer.
Yes.
Somebody wants to know, are you in your travels across the country, will you be going to Michigan?
Yes, sir. We are actually going to St. Louis and Kansas City, and it's not too far from Michigan, so I'll be more than happy to go through that.
Now, do you have any connection with the Get on the Bus program at all?
Sorry, Father.
That's okay. No, I was asking if you had any connection with the Get on the Bus program. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, I do. In fact, we are going to meet along the way. They're the ones who are actually CRJW is the one which is organizing and helping us in that space. We are coming to St. Louis, Kansas City, and going all the way to Houston, Dallas. We're stopping at Arizona, and then we want to find some partner in that we can work with in the Bay Area. And if it works, then we'll be more than happy. This is like We're coming on a bus, and the trip is called, it's called Breakthrough, 2024. That's what we are calling it. And the bus is already ready for us to come. In fact, let me take one quick minute to show you what that looks like. If you see on the streets of America, that's us.
So you're hitting the road in 2024, and a lot of our people are looking for when you're going to be in their town. So I'm thinking we need to put your contact information in the chat feature, and that way they can get your schedule and reach out to you.
Absolutely.
Also, I'm thinking any recommendations for how people can get involved in your program and support and become active in your ministry there.
So great question, Father. My thought process is like, right now, I'm actually speaking at, CLA, which is like a Correctional Leaders Association. So that's across the country. We have like the secretaries of state that wants this program in their state and in their cities. Because we have a reputation of like bringing the number of inmates down. So if there is anyone interested in bringing us over to like a New Jersey, or St. Louis, or Atlanta, wherever, just let us know. And what we will do is like we will get like the prison set up in such a way. We'll come and give all the playbook and everything. We're hoping and praying that the saints will take what we have learned and then do it in their place. We will help them set up, we'll train them, and then we will travel with them maybe for a year or so, and then after that they should be able to do it on their own.
Okay, great. And a number of people have been asking, yes, this webinar is recorded and we will post it on the CPMC website so you can show it to your friends as well. Cyril, can you tell us about what the residents themselves in the prisons have to do to prepare for these visits, and how has that affected the prisons that you've visited where this program exists?
So, we do have a program that, before we even bring their kids in, we have a set of classes these fathers have to go through called Be a Father. So we have some materials for that to teach these guys how to be a father, because 85% of men that are serving time in this country grew up without fathers. So they don't really know how to be a father, how to communicate with their children. So that's a study that, that will help them to get prepared for this. Then the two things that is a conditional for them. Number one, we cannot have a sexual offenders in this program. So we take the sexual offenders from this program. And number two, the kids are not the victim of the offense that they did. Okay, so those are two things that the prison will do a verification and clear out and give us that list of all the fathers. So the way it works is I will go present this vision to a prison, and then the people who are listening will sign up their children into the program. Then we take that in the playbook. I'm walking through this. It takes like a 45 days from the time we get that application form to actually have their kids come and see their fathers. Now, during that time, we prepare the volunteers on how to serve inside the prison. During that time, we'll make the phone calls to the families and convince them to say, come on over, your father gave this information. That's where you get like a people keep the phone down, don't want to talk to him, we don't want to be part of this, kind of thing. But then we convince them during that 45 days, and then we take them into the prison, for the visit. One of the reasons why the prisons like this program is that the inmate has to be fraction-free, disciplinary-free for 1 year. So that's a condition from the prison itself, like where this is a benefit for your positive behavior. right? So that answers your first question. The second question is like you talked about like how the people can be prepared from the inside, also that they need to know that we are real and that we are doing this with a pure intent. And so when they start to see the people show up week after week to prepare these guys, they'll fall in line.
One of the things, and when you showed us the trailer of the film coming out, it was quite poignant to see the children who wanted nothing to do with their fathers. How do you reach out to children like that who have been alienated from their fathers for years before the
You know, oh yeah, it is definitely tough. And so that's why we work with the caregivers first. We try to find out how we can help them out. Sometimes the kids will say, I'm not going to come. I don't want to see him, right? We tell them, okay, that's fair enough. Fine. You don't need to forgive that father, right? But here's the thing. We also have a program to mentor these kids to go to college. And so we take them into Kids to Career. We work with them. We work in the life skills of these kids. We help them to forgive that father, and then we introduce them back into. So that Father George, the Kids to Career is a once a month program where the kids get a chance to come and we get a chance to mentor these children. And we would love to have each of these cities have their own Kids to Career programs. We want to start one in Michigan. We want to start one in Virginia. Virginia is like a very ripe. Anyone from Virginia who wants to be part of it, we have access to all the 29 prisons in Virginia. We also have Texas.
Now, it's interesting because you show in the film the fathers. What about incarcerated mothers?
Oh, we do work with the mothers as well. In fact, we highlight the fatherlessness, pretty heavily because that's like a major problem statement. But also in the case of like a moms, we take the kids to see their mothers as well. It's very emotional in the women's prison. In the men's prison, Father George, we had 33 guys come, but in the women's prison so far in the last 12 years, not even one mother who was released from the prison that washed her son or daughter's feet has ever come back to prison. 0% recidivism.
That's amazing. A lot of the women, some of our viewers also thank you because they work with women as well and appreciate the work you've been doing. Again, so many people they're really popping up like, I want to know this country or that country, that country. Do you do, actually, that is the question is, do you do any work outside the United States or is there any plan to?
It's funny that you asked, Father George. This year, for the first time, we're opening our operations in London and Manchester in October 11th and 12th. We're going to be there. And end of May of 2025, we are going to be in Brazil. About 500 of those priests and fathers and pastors are coming together to listen to this presentation. And then we're going to Amazon, Africa, in May of 2025. We've never, India asked about it. The problem that we face in the US is so different. It's the lack of fathers, lack of education, those kind of issues that we are trying to address is so unique to the Western countries. And so this will work. What we have found a solution will work really well for a Western country, not the Eastern countries.
That's wonderful. And again, focusing on the United States, how about getting into the prisons in terms of your relationships with the administrators, with the correction officers? I find often in my own work, they're the difficulty in the work certainly way more than the prisoners themselves. So how have you managed to build a relationship with the people who administer these systems?
So when I started this journey, Father George, I was in South Carolina doing all this work. And what happened is like the first 18 fathers who washed their children's feet didn't come, right, back into prison. And that news hit the governor At that point, it was Governor Nikki Haley was in the office. So she invited me to her office and asked me, Cyril, what are you doing in my prisons? I keep hearing about you, so I explained it to her, like the process that I'm going through. Then she called the head of the prison industry. At that time, it's called prison industry. Now they call it enterprise. And said, open the door for this guy for all the prisons in South Carolina, right? And so I started to do well in South Carolina. Then I got invited to the Republican Governors Association. There is an association in DC that has like a lot of those coalition of all the governors talk about this. So then I got invited to the governor's office in North Carolina. So Father, I'm not going to each individual prisons and asking for it. I'm actually going to the heads of the prisons. So when it comes from top down, there is no, the,
Yeah.
the wardens have like a very less to say. So we do have right now, Father, we have invites from several of the states. And that's why a meeting with a team like this, Prison Coalition, is such a blessing because we're going to find those states, will go, much easier to find a partner. Because finding a partner like this who has a like-minded is so important.
And are you partnering with anybody in the North Carolina facility that will be turned into a vocational school or?
So great question. So we have 5 trades in there, Father George, and one of them is a welding program. So we have Southern Fabricators, one of the welding companies, fabrication companies, that's actually working today afternoon. We are signing the deal with the Lincoln, which is the equipment that we're going to be using for welding purposes. And then Joe Gibbs, he's actually an icon in Charlotte. He's a NASCAR owner. He's building the auto shop. We have like a, vertical farm by the farmers from South Dakota. So each of the trades, is actually partnered with one of the industry leaders of that segment, right? Not only that, Father, we also want to be very clear. This is a Christian organization. So we're going to be teaching them biblical values and study on the Bible for 2 hours in a day and 2 hours of life skills. 2 hours of the actual skills and 4 hours of work. So for the first trade that's starting in August 24, we are working with the Black and Beach, a company in Kansas City that's going to give 2,000 man hours of apprenticeship. So these kids for 18 months will go through the school. They don't need to pay any fees for the tuition, boarding, or lodging. And on top of it, they'll walk away with the $20,000 in their bank account when they release or complete their schooling. And Bank of America is going to house all that money, so it will be available to them when they finish, the school on time. So it's like a new way of doing the trade school, Father George.
Right. I would say final question would be, can you talk about your volunteers in this program? How do you train them, and what skills do they need to come in to help with this program?
I would say, like, as long as they can move and smile, are great assets for us. We have 3,000 volunteers in North Carolina and South Carolina. And they need to come. If the thought process, Father George, is that we want these volunteers to work with a prison that is closer to their home. We have no problem people going to South America and Africa and working there and everything, but we have a problem in our own backyard. Kids going to bed without food and problems in homes. So we want them to see that like a mission field. So the volunteers get the training on do's and don'ts when they come into prison. There are certain things you cannot do. And when you hear like one of the inmates say like, oh, we didn't have a good food, they didn't treat me bad, we don't want them to go call CNN or Fox. So we teach them some of those skills, and the trades. It's just a 1 hour train, and then the program is pretty much set. It's like a minute by minute we have the program of what's going to happen, and we have different roles in that, and we also bring in shoes for the kids after the fathers wash their children's feet. It's just like what the word says, train up a child in the way he should go. The Bible doesn't say train up a child in the way the father went or the mother went, in the way he should go. So the fathers take and the mothers take their old shoes and they put up brand new shoes on their feet. So we have a team that needs to work on shoes, team that works on food, team that works on like a spiritual enrichment for these children and forgiveness. So each team can do their job, and at the end of the day, all of them will be blessed.
And do you do any kind of debriefing or
Okay.
prayer with the volunteers after the program?
Actually, the last 20 minutes of the program is called quiet time. So we leave the family members and the inmates in that room, and we take all of the volunteers into a separate area. We talk about what went well, what did not go well, but also tell them, be encouraged and pray for them. Because a lot of times people come to visit the prisons thinking that they're going to serve somebody, an unfortunate one. But oftentimes they may be showing up in a prison because God's not done with them. God's working in their heart. God is interested in us more than he's interested in the whole world. He cares about, Cyril. He cares about Father George. He cares about us individually. So we want to talk about like how God can just like help enrich them. So we pray with them. We ask them, if there is anything that we can do to help. So kind of like a community.
Thank you, Cyril, for sharing this beautiful ministry you have. And I know for our viewers, all of us who are called to this kind of work know that prisoners and their families have a real special place in God's heart. And so thank you for sharing this wonderful ministry
Thank
with
you.
us today. And may God continue to bless you in this ministry. And I
Thank
know
you.
you'll be hearing from many people because people really want to hear more about it. So again, thank you all for your presence and a special thanks to you, Cyril, and may God continue to bless you in your work.